Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media, 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. Welcome to another edition of the Star Local Media Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor here at Star Local Media, and I'm being joined by Justin Thomas, who is our Denton County sports editor, as well as Bryan Murphy, who is our sports editor for Frisco, Little Elm, Salina, Prosper, you name it. So we're going to talk some high school baseball today. You know, last Monday's podcast was devoted to softball. We're going to shift gears and go baseball to kick off this week and just play a little bit of catch up, as all of our teams are now just past the midpoint in district play, and we've got plenty materializing as far as playoff races, district title races, whatnot. So let's give y'all kind of an update on how that's shaken out in our markets. We're going to actually start in Class 5A this time. We're going to work in a different order than usual. We're going to start actually in District 14 5A and to look at kind of how things are shaking out there as of now. And one thing is, for each district, you know, I'll list off the standings. One thing to note is that because the weather was so crappy last Friday and next to no games were actually played that night, that a lot of games were rescheduled either over the weekend or at some point this week. So you might have, some records that aren't, that are one game, behind, another team just because they haven't played their eighth game yet. Most teams should be 8 games in if I'm looking over these standings right. Right now over in 14-5A, you've got Prosper all alone in first place at 8-0, running the table. What else is new for the Eagles? It's just they seem to be doing that in every sport in this district. You have Lake Dallas in second place at 7-1, one game up on the Colony at 6-2, and then you have Little Elm in fourth place at 5-3, and those four have kind of distanced themselves and put themselves in position to be the top four out of the postseason mix in that district. To round it out, you've got R.L. Turner in fifth place at 3-5, and then you have a three-way tie for last place between McKinney North, Creekview, Newman Smith at 1-7. Bryan. Like I said, man, just doing Prosper things in this baseball district. I know this is a sport that they've traditionally been very strong in. What have you kind of seen out of Prosper in just its latest undefeated campaign through district?
They're pretty dominant. As they've been. I saw them play Little Elm. They shut them out pretty handily. We were just talking before we got on that McKinney North, usually they're a baseball power in 14-5A. Over the last few years, they've been really good at baseball. And then we were like, why do they only have one win? But then we looked at their scores.
It's been a lot of close losses for McKinney North, and the offense is taken some time to get going and get some consistent production there. But that has not been the case for Prosper.
And it's like they've swapped with Lake Dallas. I didn't expect Lake Dallas to be as good as they were, and they're 7-1. And I haven't seen them play this year, so I couldn't tell you anything about Lake Dallas. But it's kind of a shocker. That's like I expected McKinney North to be that second or third place team. And Lake Dallas has kind of taken that spot. But Prosper, they're taking advantage of, their last year in 5A. Next year it'll get tougher when they're playing Allen and Planos and the big 6A powerhouses. But they're doing what Prosper does.
We should note they haven't played Lake Dallas or the Colony yet, though. So they haven't faced the two toughest teams in the district so far yet either. So.
That is the one thing. This is one of those, like a lot of baseball districts now, where they just do these home and home series. Yeah. So it does make it a little bit tougher to kind of gauge how good the teams are, just because your schedule might be a bit, front loaded or back loaded. And
I guess we should probably note that to the fans too. That it's halfway done, but you haven't played every team yet. It's not like softball where you play all 7 teams and do it again. So
you could have a team that is like 7-1, but you've played like the bottom 3 teams in the district and whatnot already. So you might be, and that's why kind of like with Lake Dallas, I'm fascinated to see what their home stretch looks like, because they are yet to play Little Elm fourth place and Prosper first place. Those are going to be their last 2 series. They play Creekview this week, but so far Lake Dallas has at the very least put itself in good position to get to the playoffs after missing out last season. Like I mentioned, they're 7-1, and a lot of this is thanks to you asked what the big one of the big keys is, and that's that they have one of the maybe the front runner for pitcher of the year in the district in Mason Meeks, who is he's coming off 2 complete game shutout performances. 3-0 versus North, 2-0 versus the Colony, and this was he was their ace last year, so this was they obviously were able to ride his arm pretty far, and it just seems like he's kind of gone up a notch from a dominant standpoint, and he's also quite the astute hitter as well. He in their district game against R.L. Turner, which again at the time you might have thought that it was wow, like Lake Dallas going down to the wire with R.L. Turner, that seems kind of alarming, but it turns out out Earl Turner's actually pretty solid this season. And you had Mason Meeks, who actually came in to pitch 5 innings of relief in that game, and then he was also batting, and then came in. I actually think I don't know if he was pinch hitting or whatnot, but he came in extra innings and he hit a grand slam. And en route to a rare, they won that game. I want to say it went 13 innings, and they won 14-6. So your rare 8-run, 13-inning ball game. But yeah, he's just kind of been getting it done all over the place for Lake Dallas, and it's a huge reason why they're in position to get back to the playoffs. We'll see what these last few weeks hold, because like I said, the schedule is going to definitely ratchet up over the last 2 weeks when they play 2 of the teams that are in that top 4. But they at least able to get a split against the Colony in what was kind of their first real test in district play. The Colony, took it to them on Tuesday, beat them, I think 11-1 was the score, yeah. And then they threw Mason Meeks out there on Friday, and they won 2-0. That's just what a difference, just his arm can make.
It seems like Mason Meeks is the Ohtani. That's
right. That's right.
Well, the Colony has a pitcher that might be making a case for pitcher of the year as well, though. You mentioned that 11-1 game. Bryson Leroy got the win in that one for the Colony, and that 1 run was actually the first run he's given up in district.
Okay, wow, there you go.
Was 3-0 with a 0 ERA in district going into that one, I believe. So
maybe it'll be a co-pitcher of the year, like they'll often do on these all-district lists.
We know the 14-5A likes to make up some extra categories too.
Yeah, kind of stick with the Colony though, and just kind of how they've been progressing to the point where they're now also in a pretty favorable position.
Yeah, well, last year they hadn't made the playoffs since I think 2011 until getting there last year and then going down in the first round. But they have a lot of talent back from that team. I mentioned Bryson Leroy. Shea Hardis was actually the newcomer of the year last year, and he's their number 1 starter, I guess. He's the Tuesday starter, I guess you could say, or the Friday starter for the Colony, I guess. Yeah. But he's having another solid season, and he's a pretty good bat offensively as well. And then Jordan Oliveira is another guy hitting at the top of the lineup. He does a little bit of everything for the Colony. He can come in relief, good in the field, multiple positions. And then backup quarterback in football, Keegan Schultz is back. He was another all-district performer last year, and he's having a pretty dynamite season. Sage Bonner had, I think, 5 RBIs in that 11-1 win over Lake Dallas. So pretty productive lineup from top to bottom for the Colony. And, they have some other experienced players back, too, like Cameron Hill and Chase Long. So pretty experienced, some college talent, and I'm not really too surprised to see where they're at right now.
How about with just some quick thoughts on Little Elm and just their 5 and 3 start?
I mean, speaking of college talent, they have an Oklahoma commit. I know you're an OU alum. You're
Boomer
big
Sooner.
It's
the second time OU's got a shout out on this podcast.
So Logan Kohler, he's the quarterback for Little Elm, kind of like Keegan Schultz. He's probably their best baseball player as well. He made the move from second base and starting pitcher to third base and kind of a closer role this year, and he's been awesome, lights out at that position. He's been more effective throwing 30 pitches versus going trying to go for a marathon for 90 pitches. He's been a lot more explosive there, the late innings. And they have other pitchers, Carson Cox, Dylan Salinas, the 2 other starters. They're college bound. They lost some guys, Frenier Chavez, one of the best players to go through that program, shortstop. He's playing college baseball now too, but he has a freshman brother, almost the exact identical name. It's Frenier and Frenier. 1 letter separates the 2. Not sure why there, but I remember when they played Prosper in this district opener, I looked at the scorecard, the starting lineup, and I saw Frenier Chavez. I was like, man, I thought he graduated.
Now we held him back a year.
He's the district MVP. We need him back. We need him back in 2018. But no, it's his freshman brother. He's a lot smaller. I saw him out on the diamond. I was like, that's not Frenier. And he's about 5 inches shorter, but he's a freshman, and they're already saying he could be better than his brother was by the time he's a senior. So Little Elm, they're on their way most likely to a playoff berth once again. Let's
then look at District 13-5A out in Frisco. And for this, we don't have to go team by team. I'll just kind of what has been kind of the biggest takeaway from the first half is we just kind of a quick update on these standings. This is one of those districts that has a lot of games being played later this afternoon, Monday, at the time of this recording. You have in first place, you have Frisco Wakeland at 6-1. Heritage is in second at 5-2. Reedy and Centennial are tied for third at 5-3. They actually did get in their Friday game apparently. And then you have Lone Star in fifth place at 4-3. Just a half game back of third. And then let's see, Independence 2-5, sixth. Frisco also 2-5 in sixth, and Liberty winless at 0-7. Bryan, what has been your biggest takeaway from the first half or so of District 13-5A?
Wakeland is still Wakeland. I guess they lost their entire starting lineup. They returned a few players, some relief pitchers. They have Colby Dellashaw back, who's been one of their top hitters this year. But it's been a bunch of sophomores and juniors stepping up. Their catcher J.D. Gregson the other night, a couple weeks ago against Reedy, hit a big 3-run homer as they beat Reedy, another team who looks like they're playoff bound. But Wakeland, they went to the state tournament last year, lost in the state semifinals, and right here they are, first place in 13-5A again. Barry Rose does a fantastic job. But the real surprise of this district, I think, has been Heritage. They've never made the playoffs in their in history in baseball, and they're in second place right now. They're looking really, really good. I met up with them a couple weeks ago for a big story. They're a senior heavy team. They have a lot of experience, and they're ready to threaten Wakeland for a district title this year.
Interesting.
And they have another guy who's another multi-sport athlete, Amari Jones, the quarterback for Frisco Heritage. He's going to Tulane. He's going to be the running back at Tulane next year.
He's all healed up from the football injury?
He had a grand slam a few weeks ago. I saw him hit it, and he's might be one of, if not their fastest players on the team. He's their leadoff guy too, so he's back to 100%.
And then over in Class 6A, let's talk about a few of our 6A districts. Justin, we can kind of shift gears now to the Lewisville ISD district out in 5-6A, and a much different set of standings than I'm used to looking at in a district that involves Lewisville ISD. To give you all kind of an update on how that district sits right now, you've got first place. This is not a surprise. South Lake Carroll, they're always good at baseball. Still are. They're 7-1 in first place. Second place, you have Byron Nelson, Trophy Club Byron Nelson at 6-2, and then LD Bell is in third at 5-2. They have an unfinished game against Euless Trinity.
Yeah, looks like they were leading, but it got delayed for the weather. So I
think they're going to continue that
pick
today.
it up there with Bell leading Trinity 3-2. I guess so. If Bell holds on there, then they would get up to a tie for second with Byron Nelson.
And then in fourth place, you have Marcus at 4-4. Flower Mound High is in fifth at 3-5. We just mentioned Trinity. Currently, they are in sixth at 2-5. And then you have a tie for seventh between Lewisville and Hebron at 2-6. Pretty surprising, Justin.
Yeah,
kind of what do you make
definitely.
of just this unconventional layout right now that we have in 5-6A?
Yeah, so used to seeing all the Lewisville teams up there. Last year they got 3 of the 4 playoff spots, and one of them was a tie for the last one between Lewisville and Hebron. So definitely odd to see Hebron and Lewisville down at the bottom of the standings, and then of course Flower Mound hasn't missed the playoffs in forever. So
I know it was
weird to see them at 5th place, but. They kind of got off to a slow start last year. I think they were 1-3 or 0-2 or something. Somebody might have gotten on my case about my predictions having them in the playoffs, which they ended up making anyway. So slow start for Flower Mound again, but might have saved their season last week. They got a pair of 1-run wins over Hebron. So they started out 1-5. A couple big wins against Hebron to get to 3-5 and kind of stay in there. And they've already played Southlake, so they have that one out of the mix. So. If they can have a good showing in the Mound Showdown against rival Marcus this week, they could get in better positions because the schedule softens a little bit with Trinity and Lewisville to close.
And I guess looking at those top 3, it's not like everyone expects Southlake to probably be in contention for a district title, and LD Bell has enough tradition to where it's.
I think they made the playoffs 3 or 4 years in a row.
Yeah,
and had a big upset at Coppell one year, if I recall. So not surprising to see those programs, but maybe just surprising to see them ahead of. The LISD school. The other thing about this district is the games have all been super close. I'm looking at Flower Mound's schedule right now. 2-1, 5-4, 3-1, 3-1, 5-3, 6-2, 2-1. So Lewisville's been right in there in a lot of games. So even the teams that are kind of out of the playoffs right now are right in there. And you mentioned Marcus in 4th. They're the only LSD team that will make the playoffs right now, and they just got a big split with Carroll in their series last week. So they're the only team that's beat the Dragons so far.
Let's stick with you and then just talk a little bit about a team that's there's nothing out of character at all for over 9-6A with Coppell.
Yeah.
And the start that they are off to. Coppell's in first place in 9-6A, as will usually be the case. That's just one of the more perennially strong baseball programs in the Metroplex. They are 8-0 so far. They've got a 2-game lead over Jesuit and Lake Highlands, who are in second place at 6-2. You have W.T. White and Richardson Pierce, tied for 4th at 4-4. Richardson High is in 6th place at 2-6, and Berkner and Skyline rounded out at 1-7. I said Coppell's just kind of taking care of business, and they've already played. They've already played Jesuit.
Yeah, that's the impressive. Well, not only have they played Jesuit, you look at those standings, and they're 8-0, and they've already played 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Okay, so
and Pierce, so they've
They've already got the tough part out of the way.
Hard work is out of the way. They're 8-0, and so pretty soft finish, but they do have some non-district games scheduled to kind of help them stay in tune. I think they're playing Plano West and a couple of the Frisco schools on non-district Saturday games to just try to get some extra work for their pitchers and kind of, honestly, to get a little tougher competition.
Which you need, because then when you're in a district like that, that's just so like.
Because I don't think Richardson or Skyline is going to give them much of a game.
What about Berkner?
Once you got past Jesuit, I mean, that was because Jesuit's a program that's always pretty strong at baseball too. And once, because that was the first series to start off.
Opener, and that was a pretty competitive. I think Coppell won the first game 8-5 and then 6-2 or something maybe. So it was pretty competitive games. But 8-0 and already played the 4 teams that you would think would give them any trouble. Although Berkner is at the bottom of those standings, and they've been really close with everybody. So maybe Berkner could give a surprise. But it looks like not only the playoffs, but they're probably going to clinch this district title pretty soon. And pretty impressive too, because they lost a lot of talent from last year. But Kendall Clark always seems to reload. I know he keeps a big varsity roster and likes to get those guys working with the varsity. And I think that helps transition from year to year.
Then let's round out with a look at District 6A, the good old Plano Allen McKinney district, and how that's one. This district's been very up and down as we kind of make our way through it. You've got in first place, you have a tie for first, our first tie of the podcast between Plano and Allen. They are 6-2, just one game up on a tie for third place between Denton Geyer and McKinney Boyd at 5-3. You've got Plano West in fifth place at 4-4, McKinney in sixth at 3-5. Plano East they are 2-6 in seventh place, and Wiley rounds it out at in eighth at 1-7. With this, I guess we can focus on the just kind of the top 4 teams in this district, primarily Allen, Plano, and McKinney Boyd. It's kind of strange because the more we've kind of followed this district, obviously like y'all's districts, they do the home and home series as well. So, and the good thing is that of those top 4, you've already had, they've all essentially played each other for the most part. Plano and Boyd are playing later this week, and then Geyer and Boyd still have to play, but you've already got, Allen, Plano out of the way, Geyer, Allen, Geyer, Plano. So those top 3 teams, it's been those top 3 in some combination for most of the season. And they've played each other, and yet it's still kind of up in the air as to who the best team might be. I mean, you've got 2 teams that are tied for first place, and both have kind of conducted their business in kind of different fashions. Plano got shut out in its district opener by Geyer 5-0, and they've won 6 out of 7 since. And that only loss was a 3-2 loss to Allen in a game where they were leading for a good chunk. And during this this stretch, Plano has outscored its opponents 46-17, and they haven't allowed more than 3 runs in their past 5 district games. So the pitching and defense has really fallen into place. Coming into the season, pitching depth was kind of expected to be the kind of the cornerstone of this team, with guys like Matt Foster, Bo Leonards, Quentin Frederick, Ben Patterson, who they threw last Friday against Wiley, and Coach Rick Robertson has a pretty healthy stable of guys that he can turn to, and in the bullpen, and it's really kind of paid off so far. But then you look at a team like Allen, which is they're 6-2 as well, and they've played the toughest schedule of anybody in the district. I mean, they opened up against. Their series so far have been against Boyd, Plano, Geyer, Plano West. They've played the next 4 teams in the district already. So, and they're 6-2, but by that same accord, it's not the same kind of 6-2. They kind of go about winning these games in some unconventional ways. Like I just mentioned, they when they beat Plano 3-2, I was at that game, and you're just kind of watching the game, and Allen got on the board early with a run, then Plano was able to counter with 2, and then a few innings pass by, and it seems like Plano's really kind of starting to figure out this Allen lineup. And then in the 5th inning, in just the span of 3 at bats, Allen's back in front 3-2, and Allen, which had really hadn't shown much of a pulse, then they just in the blink of an eye, they're back up front 3-2, and they end up winning that game. And talking to head coach Paul Coe afterwards, he had said that there have been times like that this season where they'll just kind of be, I believe the exact terminology he used was moseying along, and then just out of nowhere, then they're oh wow, okay, we're ahead, we're winning. And so they've it's definitely not the most authoritative kind of way of finding the win column, but they're winning games nonetheless. I mean, they just look at last Friday against Denton Geyer. They lost to Geyer 6-3 on Tuesday, and then we're actually down heading into the into the 7th inning, and then posted. Let me see. It was they put together a 7-run 7th inning and came back and beat Geyer 8-7. So I mean, it's it's a team that is opportunistic, huh?
So just like your Red Sox yesterday.
Absolutely, best team in baseball right now. Mark it down. And then so I mean, I'm not sure how how much of if that kind of random consistency will, if you can rely on that kind of long term if you're Allen, but nevertheless, as they
did you just make up a term there, random consistency?
It does sound like just a long way of saying inconsistency. Random consistency. It does seem like a really long way of just saying inconsistent. But yeah, the thing that has been at least more consistent for Allen has been their, much like Plano, their pitching and their defense. They've got a freshman who has been their Tuesday starter for most of district named Brett Tanksley, who is in line, probably might be the front runner right now for newcomer of the year out of District 6-6A. He was able to lead them to wins in his first 2 district starts, and then they've kind of started to kind of slow him down a bit, monitor his innings. He didn't throw last Tuesday against Geyer, just trying to keep his arm healthy and whatnot.
With all the kids that Allen has, how many starting pitchers have they used in district play, I should say?
They've settled on Brett Tanksley has usually been their Tuesday starter, and Kyle Williams has been their Friday guy.
Okay.
But it's Allen. When Tanksley wasn't pitching, I think they've got 3 or 4 guys that they use. It's kind of a committee effort if one of their their go-to starters isn't there. But outside of that, but again, while it doesn't sound like the most glowing review to say that Allen's offense has been kind of inconsistent and they just keep finding ways to win, at the end of the day, they still have they're 6-2 after having played the toughest schedule in the district, and their 3 remaining series are against Plano East, Wiley, McKinney, the bottom 3 teams in the district. So at the very least, they've put themselves in great position to potentially repeat as district champions, which for a team that lost, every single inning that was pitched last year in district play and the playoffs, to be able to potentially repeat as district champions would be a major, major accolade for that program. And then also, you can't leave out McKinney Boyd, which, had a bit of a slow start. They ran into Allen to start district and got swept, and pretty convincing too, 8-1, 4-1, something like that. And then they've since kind of got it together. They've won 5 of their past 6, and they just recently swept Plano West, who they were tied with, for 4th place at the start of the week. So now that's massive for McKinney Boyd's playoff hopes, just for potential tiebreaker purposes. That's the one thing about these home and home series, just in all across these districts. You can't get swept in any series. Just you want to do at the very least you got to split, because if you surrender that tiebreaker to one of these other teams, then you just because then you're just kind of scoreboard watching that team the rest of the way, just hoping you don't end up tied with them at the end of the season. But then you've got McKinney Boyd, which has really bounced back since that setback to Allen. And looking over some box scores for them, they've scored at least 6 runs in 6 consecutive games. I'm anchored mostly by the top half of their order, guys like Tyler Collins, Jack Brinkley, Ethan Mann, Davis Cunningham, and Jake Russell. So props to the Broncos for being able to rebound, and because this was a team that didn't make the playoffs last year out of 6-6A, and they have now thrust themselves into a pole position for that last playoff spot. One district that we didn't mention is District 10-6A, the Garland ISD district, and that is actually the subject of our Fast Forward Rewind Student Athlete Spotlight for the week. Devin Hasson, our East Dallas County sports editor, was out at Rowlett to chat with one of their standout players, Logan Layer, who's making the transition from shortstop to catcher, and Logan talked about that and more with Devin. Take a look at that.
Hey y'all, this is Devin Hasson with the Star Local Media Sports Crew. We're talking baseball this week, and I'm joined by one of the top players in the area, Rowlett Senior Logan Layer. Logan, appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your time. Logan is a 4-year varsity starter for the Eagles, which is kind of a rarity in the Class 6A. You don't often have a freshman that can step in and contribute right away, but Logan stepped in right away as the starting shortstop from pretty much day 1. He is a 3-time All-District honoree, and last year was voted the Defensive Player of the Year in 10-6A as a shortstop. So it was a little bit of a curveball to me when I go out there and see you last week playing ball, and you're behind the plate catching. So what prompted the position change for your senior year?
We were running light on catching. We lost a lot of catchers last year, so Carmen said, we're going to need a catcher. We're going to need you to step up back there, because he knew I used to catch.
Okay.
So I told him I could do it, and I'm catching.
Okay.
Pretty good so far.
So you did have previous experience.
Yes.
How long ago, though, were you catching?
Probably about when I was 11 or 12, so that was a while ago.
So it took a while to get back into it, or was it?
It took a little while. It took a couple weeks to get back into, blocking, get back in the rhythm of it. because it's a lot different from catching 11-year-olds.
Yeah, definitely.
So-
Well, and I mentioned you as a 4-year starter. When you stepped in 4 years ago as a freshman, was that an intimidating prospect, or was it a pretty smooth transition given the fact that you're going to be playing with guys 2 or 3 years older than you?
At first it was intimidating, but then once I got out there and I got to show everybody what I could do, I kind of got in smooth with it.
Yeah, okay.
I got used to it.
Okay, well now you've got probably 100 games, over 100 games in a
Yes.
Rowlett uniform. When you kind of look back at your overall game, how have you evolved as a player over the course of your high school career?
As a player, much more mature and understanding of the game, that you're not always going to go 3 for 3, 3 for 4, that you're going to have bad games. So that's my main thing I've learned is maturity.
Okay. Well, and last year you guys 12-0, undefeated district champions, but you lost a lot of seniors from that team.
Oh, yeah.
Now you've got some new faces. You're the senior they turn to. How have you tried to embrace that leadership role?
How to embrace it is just go out there and do everything right. Just set an example. Don't mess around too much. Don't let other people think they can just go out and lollygag around.
Yeah.
So just try to show them that this is the right way to do it, and just don't start messing around at practice, especially now with Carmen out there watching.
It's very true that.
Yeah.
Now you guys have a winning tradition, 18 consecutive playoff season, good position to make it 19 in a row. How important is that to you and those guys in terms of carrying on that legacy?
I think it's awesome. I think we're all very proud of it, and we certainly don't want to be the class to lose that. So that's what we're playing for. We're not playing for a district championship, even though it'd be nice to win again. We want to see how far we can go in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's our main goal.
Well, and winning has always obviously been a consistent thing with this program. The other thing that I've caught over the years is the dugout banter. You guys have one of the liveliest dugouts out there. What kind of things do y'all do on and off the field to kind of keep things loose, keep things relaxed?
In the dugout, we're never talking bad about each other. We're not ever smack talking each other. Somebody strike out, I'm like, hey, you good? Just go out there next time. Just clear your mind. And on the field, it's just if pitchers are going well, if they're throwing strikes, that's the main thing that keeps us energetic. If they're not, that starts, making people angry.
Yeah.
Then we go out there and tell them, hey, calm down, throw strikes.
Okay. And now you signed with Texas State, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. They're going to move you to catcher there, or are you going to move back to shortstop?
I'm not sure yet. I told them I play all around the infield, and I told them I also catch. They said, well, that's good to be a utility player, and you can catch. So, once I get there, they'll just put me wherever.
So what was it about that program that I guess sold you on signing on for the next 4 years in San Marcos?
They have a good program. I never thought about it that much until I went down there and watched them play. And I said, oh yeah, this is a school I want to go to.
Yeah.
And also I have family close down in San Antonio. So I'll be close to family, and they got a good school.
Yeah, and San Marcos is a beautiful little town.
Yes.
So it's
yes, it is.
well, obviously a lot to look forward to there, but first unfinished business here. Still got in the stretch run of your senior campaign. When I talk to Coach Carmen every year about goals and expectations, he doesn't shy away from it. He says, our goal is to make it to the state tournament and to win a state championship.
Oh, yeah.
Is that something that y'all players actively talk about before or during the course of the season?
A little bit. We don't specifically say we're going for state, because we're just focusing right now on getting to playoffs. And then once we get to playoffs, we're just thinking about each game at a time, because you can't really think, second round we got to do this, third round we got to do this. We got to focus on the game that we're playing in the first round before we start thinking way ahead.
Yeah.
So it's mainly just focus on the moment.
Well, and you mentioned obviously getting to the playoffs and being successful in the playoffs. You've been through this. You've been through the wars. You've been through the battles. You know what it takes to get there. You know what it takes to win in the playoffs. What does this team need to do over the next 3 weeks to build momentum and to, I guess, be peaking at the right time to make a playoff run?
To build momentum, just keep staying focused on winning games. As we lost 2 games in a row 2 weeks ago, and that let our momentum down. And then we played North Garland on Friday, and we're getting back into hitting a little bit, playing defense well, throwing strikes, and we're getting that momentum back. But every day out here at practice, we're focusing on hitting line drives. We're not trying to do too much with it, and that's all we really got to focus on is hitting. Our defense is doing good. That's the main thing, is hitting.
Okay, fantastic. Well, hey, Logan, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to join us on the Star Local Media podcast, and best of luck to you and best of luck to the team the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, thank you to Logan and Devin for that chat right there. We're going to round things out with a quick rundown of what our game coverage docket looks like on Tuesday, as well as any other news and notes that have come down the pipe since we last spoke from within our markets. Let's see, Bryan, where are you going to be at tomorrow night?
I will be at Lone Star High School as Centennial and Lone Star battle it out for potentially a third or fourth playoff spot, maybe a second. Who knows? We'll see. There's a lot on the balance there. Centennial and Lone Star battle it out. And Centennial, they actually beat Wakeland last week 6-0. So the only 13-5A team to beat Wakeland this year. So should be an interesting game.
I feel like you got an interesting game too tomorrow night, JT.
I do. Could be see if the Colony can get back in the district title hunt with Prosper. Especially that series, they're 2 games back, so I'll be out at Prosper. That one's going to be at 7:30 actually at Prosper. And so I'm actually heading out of town this weekend, so I won't be at a game on Friday, but I think you're going to help me out a little with some soccer.
That's right. I'll be picking up soccer later on in the week. I'll be covering the Region 1 6A tournament out at Justin Northwest. I mean, hey, first off, thank you for the DFW girls soccer programs in 6A Region 1 for all advancing to the regional tournament and getting that thing moved from Midland to Justin to save everybody just hours of travel. So that'll be my plans for Friday. For tomorrow night, I'm actually going to be out at McKinney Boyd. Was just talking about McKinney Boyd baseball and the run that they've got on. They're going to actually be playing Plano tomorrow night. First place Plano against third place Boyd, 7:30 at McKinney Boyd. And then also as another note, it was a busy week for me last week between having to cover the start of the postseasons for tennis and track. And I actually like covering track. I ran track in high school, and it's one of those spring sports that I kind of get excited for. And it was actually a pretty entertaining meet at the for District 6A. You had the Plano girls winning their first district title in 25 years, and they did so by they had to make a late push. They won the final 5 events of the meet, and wound up winning. They wound up beating Denton Geyer for first place by 3 points. And it's interesting because then you look at kind of how the meet laid out. Plano had they totaled 7 gold medals, and that was more than second place Geyer and third place Allen combined. But they only won district by 3 points. So what that kind of says is that Geyer and Allen probably had a bit of a depth advantage there and placed a lot more runners, not first but third, fourth, and those points kind of add up. But with
the relays count more than the individual event too, right?
But with Plano, it's kind of encouraging, kind of from a big picture standpoint, because the further you get in the track postseason, the more your top end talent really begins to kind of rack up the points versus depth. It begins to, the best runners are eventually going to separate themselves the further you get in the postseason. And Plano's got, they've got a few this year that have a chance to, this team has the potential to do something big. Runners like Ashlyn Hilliard, Kennedy Blackman, Bianca Carocchio. I mean, this is a team that, even though they kind of squeak by to get that district title, once you get to the area and regional meet, this is a team that, they could potentially, if they were able to get, at least those 3 runners, plus, maybe a relay to state. I mean, it's not out of the question. They could rack up enough points, just between.
Not too many programs are going to have 5 or 6 athletes at state.
Yeah, so Plano's top end talent might actually be, some of the better, better in the state, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see if that pans out over the next few weeks as the track postseason continues. Otherwise, that is about all I had. JT, Bryan, appreciate y'all for tagging along. Appreciate y'all for checking this out. This has been Matt Welch with Star Local Media signing off. Y'all enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks again to our sponsors, Star Local Media, 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news.